You're watching A Million Veteran Millionaires. Change your mindset, change your future. Hello, welcome to another edition of A Million Veteran Millionaires. Today, I'm so excited to have our guest, Mr. Joe Frankie. But before we get into that, hi, Kathy. How are you doing?
Hi, Andy. It's great to be here with you again today. Looking forward to hearing what you have to share with us today, Joe.
Oh, thank you. I look forward to it as well.
Yeah, so Kathy's with Quantum Leaks Coaching, Success Coaching, and we have here a fellow consultant. He teaches entrepreneurs, careerists. His written book. He's also a veteran colonel, and was recently recognized as one of the top 50 most influential people on the planet regarding careers and entrepreneurship, and also the top 100 magazine. So, been wanting to get you on this interview, Mr. Frankie, and wanted to talk about your expertise and kind of sharing what you're seeing online with social media and LinkedIn. What are some of the biggest needs in career and transitioning from the military to career, starting a business, etc. So, thank you again for being here.
It's a pleasure, and I look forward to it. And it's just Joe.
Okay, Joe, there you go. Thank you. Well, the Bible says, "Give honor to whom honor's due." So definitely don't want to assume anything in that regard. But you went to West Point, West Point grad in combat.
Yeah. So I grew up in Lower Rio Grande Valley, Texas, and graduated from high school, a little school about 10 miles north of the border. Lived out in the country, and about a month later, after graduation, I entered the Army and was in that pipeline for 34 years, 4 years at the academy, and then 30 years on active duty.
Well, thank you for your service as always. And reading your bio, you really focused on training and developing your officers and preparing them. And that ultimately led to you writing a book at some point, because people are saying, wow, you're so helpful, sharing your resources and knowledge and so forth. And of course, I also read that you are married to a lady, Karen,
Yeah, and
48 years, maybe. Is my math right?
48 years it'll be this July, and she knows more about the service than I do. She's an Army granddaughter, uh, and her father was career Air Force, and so she married an Army guy. So she understood the whole system a lot more than I did.
Well, maybe she helped you get to Colonel, right?
Oh yeah, no doubt about it.
I always say there's none tougher than a veteran's wife. So when my wife and I was we got married the day after boot camp in 1988, and so of course she let it be known that I was the private and she was the general.
That's what my sons call my wife as the little general.
We'll be celebrating 43 years April 30th, so it's unheard of to have a couple that gets it together for so long. So congratulations there. I didn't want to miss that part.
No, it, it's really an honor, and I'm glad that we've made it through that. In fact, we're not moving every 3 years, and she's done that her entire life. So about every 3 years, we got to rearrange the house. So pretend we moved.
There you go. And these are precious days. We say these are precious days. When you're young, you don't realize how fast time is going to travel, right? And so that's kind of the platform that we created here. We take into account different stages of life that folks might be in. Some people, start a business late or they start one right away. Some, go the career route before starting a business. And so it's just a practical platform for folks to get information, insight, wisdom, and talk about some of the things, that make for a good life, which for me is health, wealth, love, and happiness, right? Those are the key areas of life. That in wealth, you've got wealth of opportunity, wealth of memories, wealth of finances, wealth of business opportunities, etc. But just reviewing your profiles. I read your book maybe, I want to say 8 or 9 months ago. And so it was on my reread list. It was that critical because I'd never heard of the topic, the 5-minute drill. In the world that we're living in, time is so short, it seems that you've got the 30-second elevator pitch, and you've got the 3-minute attention, the books that have written on shortness of time and maximizing that time. But where would you like to start? I mean, how did you kind of evolve to where you're at now, but giving us a little bit of texture in your background on the business side and transitioning side?
Yeah, so LinkedIn is really a premier business tool. In fact, from a social media perspective, I think it's probably the the Leviathan in the market from a business perspective. There's all kinds of other social media, but it is really the common denominator for business. And so when I was in the process of transitioning out of the Army in 2004, it was a busy place. So, we were still deploying people, to all kinds of different places in Afghanistan and Iraq. And so for me, you went to these transition classes and all that stuff, but we were still fully involved in doing stuff. And so the retirement day came, and I just turned around, and now's the time to focus on the next step. And it was really tough because I just couldn't seem to do it while we were in the middle of deploying people. Didn't seem like I didn't feel right. But then, all of a sudden, you pull that fist out of the bucket of water, and the water goes around, and the Army keeps going, and you're out and you're trying to do something. And I learned, wow, there was a real good reason why you start this stuff a little bit ahead of time, and, work on things like they told you to do and all that kind of stuff. And when I got out, LinkedIn really wasn't here. I mean, in 2004, somebody called me up, and it was a lady I knew. And she said, "You ought to really try this. You're trying to transition. Looks like it's going to be a good tool." And so I got on it and started filling it out. And I thought, oh my God, they're going to steal my identity, And because, the dot-com boom had just been about 2 or 3 years earlier, where all kinds of stuff with that, went on. So everybody's a little leery. And so when I was trying to transition, I mean, you went to the newspaper, and I don't think very many people even realized that jobs used to be in the newspaper. And, then you had to find a way to get your resume there, and all that kind of stuff. You went to talk to all the recruiters. You carried all this paper around because you wanted to hand somebody, a paper resume. And then as I got into LinkedIn a little bit, in the job I was doing about a year later, I said, wow, this is a powerful tool because, we were doing wastewater treatment infrastructure, on a cooperative joint venture, with the company I was doing in China. And so we're trying to find people with experience in China. And so we had gone to a big recruiting firm like most people do and say, hey, can you find this, these people that got project experience in China? And so after a couple of months, they said, hey, we get our best effort and we're keeping a third of your money. And, and I said, wow, I mean, this isn't working. So then I started learning how to search for people on LinkedIn. And so I would find somebody on LinkedIn that had experience in China. I'd finally call them and say, maybe you're not the guy or gal, but hey, let me tell you, you get all the referrals, right? So what I found out was that LinkedIn was really a very powerful tool. And so from about 2005 on, after I really learned how to use it, I started coaching on it almost as a ministry for military people, because military people did not have a ways or means to translate what they did in the military into civilian vernacular of a hiring manager. And so if you get some help with LinkedIn through some people that, have been at least on the outside, they can say, okay, what did you really do as a, as a petroleum movement sergeant? Because what they have is I control so many trucks, so many soldiers and all that. Well, that doesn't mean anything. And so I remember working back through this. I said, so you were responsible for 55 5-ton tractors. Yes, I was. Okay. And you made deliveries to how many customers? Well, in this unit, we had 14 customers. Okay. And so what was your furthest customer? Well, it was 150 miles away. And so then, when we get back through this, okay, you just weren't the sergeant. You managed a fleet of, 55 trucks, 55 5,000-gallon tankers with customers, 16 customers in a square mile area of, 100 by 150. So it's over 10,000 square miles, and your fleet operational readiness was at 92%. So now you have something that somebody that's looking for a fleet manager can fully appreciate and accept what this person knows how to do, how to administrate, and how to lead the people, that perform this function. Otherwise, nobody other than somebody in the military would understand what a petroleum movement sergeant did.
Right. So I
So
understand that project you worked on, that was a big project. It's like a $3 billion project. So what a find. And of course, the military, have they improved upon helping vets to change their
yeah,
prescriptions?
they have, but you've been in the military, so it takes forever to get a contractor bids on something, right? And then they had a program of instructor that was submitted with that, right? So what's approved is almost 2 to 3 years behind, and I'm not saying that's bad or good, that's government contracting. So it's a lot better than it was today, because at least they're getting stuff. But the military today is also recognizing that they are allowing the time for people to transition. And a big change of that occurred when the Department of Defense was starting to be billed for unemployment.
Mm.
In other words, so now everybody in the chain of command is interested in helping soldiers, airmen, sailors transition because they're having to pick up some of the bill of that unemployment. So it's nice to get everybody aligned, working in one direction.
So to your point, I have a friend who has a school that helps vets. So you have vets that are getting out. They don't necessarily have to finish college. They can get it certified for SAP and Microsoft projects. And she said the biggest challenge that they had was converting the resumes into hiring resumes. And so they were looking at artificial intelligence to do some of that. So have you gotten into that realm of helping to streamline and position folks for LinkedIn and other applications?
Yeah, I mean, artificial intelligence can help you a lot, but um, you've got to be able to query, right? You're right back to the thing. Okay, artificial intelligence is great if you know what to ask it.
Right. It's still artificial, right? You still have to rely on the original intelligence.
Yeah, and you have to cascade the requirement, so it's almost like you have to learn really how to use artificial intelligence. And really, I always tell people, and they say, it's really trial and error. Try to find something out, and okay, that didn't work. It's the same thing if you and I were searching for somebody on LinkedIn. We might put 10 search words up in the search box, and you get the first 400 people on LinkedIn. And one of the things I tell people is LinkedIn is really important because describe who you are in search words, and I say, okay, now put that up in the search box. Do you come up in that search? Because when I'm an executive recruiter, I don't chase it, but I still do it today. And one of the things that motivated me to get in the business I am today was I saw that many executives do not know how to merchandise themselves for what they want. The military was always poor at it because the military, you were in your own environment, right? It's got its own acronyms, it's got its own vernacular and everything else. The problem or the challenge when you transition is, okay, you got to be able to speak or adapt to the vernacular of the private sector. To me, the U.S. Army, I mean, the reserves and the National Guard, they've got this in spades because they play in both worlds. They have to be competitive to get promoted in their civilian job, as well as be competitive to get promoted in the Guard and Reserve.
Well, excellent. So I like your approach too. I think, as we were talking, you customize, where is the person at now? What do they need? And then as a consultant advisor, you help them to untangle, I think is not the operative word that you use a lot in your descriptions.
So what happens with most people is you are probably, I mean, both of you could probably help somebody else, right? I mean, you know how to do it in spades. Now imagining you're going to try to help yourself. Well, the biggest problem you have with yourself is you've got to get your own head out of the way. Your brain housing group is the biggest impediment for something you're going to do to improve your self. And so what I find with people, most people know where they're at, okay? And if they can define where they want to go, the more specifically, the better, then there's a way to build a LinkedIn bridge to get them from where they are now to where they want to go. And you'll find that most people either are unemployed, want to get a job, they're in a job and they don't like it, or they want to, laterally do something else. They want to change sectors. For an example would be, okay, I'm tired of oil and gas. I want to get into aeronautical or mechanical engineering. Or they want to pivot at some point in their life. Or with a lot of women I work with, they just want to be seen and get promoted for the contributions they're making. And so depending on what you're trying to achieve, that determines how the LinkedIn profile is built. Because if you go back to the analogy of fishing, if you want to catch a trout, right, you better use the trout. You better use the bait that the trout likes, right? Now, you may like filet mignon till the cows come home, but using a piece of filet mignon to get a trout is not probably a good idea. You'll get a bunch of trash fish that you'll have to throw back in the lake. But what you're trying to do is be seen for what you bring to the table. And LinkedIn allows you the ability to tell story after story after story that you solve problems. What people want is they want somebody that's going to come and work for them and solve problems. I mean, it's that simple. If you're not solving some problem somewhere, then you can probably be done without, they rearranged the deck. They know who's not solving problems, and, you get your papers.
Right. So I really had not been paying attention to LinkedIn, and recently a friend of mine, took a look at my LinkedIn. I'm in marketing, right? So I'm like, well, I'm focusing on social media, Twitter and Instagram. And then I started paying more attention. That's what motivated me to get, your book here. But then even talking to Kathy, who's worked and consulted with business owners for decades. Kathy, do you want to have a few words about LinkedIn and your observations of the needs that, career folks needs and business owners need, et cetera?
Well, where do we begin on that, right? Joe, I mean, you're talking about how powerful it is, and it is such an incredible platform, not only for business owners, but also for those wanting to do something different in their career.
Absolutely.
Whether it's transitioning out of the military or just making one of those moves that you've just discussed. And, I do career coaching as well, and I've written thousands of resumes. And whether you are coming out of the military or whether you've been laid off or just wanting to make a move, you are absolutely right when you say people can't get out of their own head. They can't think about what they've done in terms of what makes them marketable and the problems that they solve and what makes people want to bring them in. And so I think working with somebody like you or me who can help them with that is a huge help to them. And it's very, very important these days to be able to tell that story on LinkedIn, because just like in job search, where you're applying for jobs, you're going through an applicant tracking system, and it's looking for keywords that fit that job description. Well, your LinkedIn profile is almost like a reverse applicant tracking system. And so, like you said, put in those search words that people would search you for, and that's going to help the people that are looking to hire find you, because that's the number one place that is searched by hiring managers, executive recruiters, anybody looking to bring people in. And so your LinkedIn profile really is very key. So, Joe, I know you talked about telling stories. What are some of your recommendations about the best ways for people to go about telling their stories on LinkedIn?
Yeah. So one of the biggest challenges out there is, LinkedIn is for, okay, what do you bring to the table? I mean, your company wants to know from you every day, what did you go out? What did you harvest? What did you bring back to the table that we're going to eat? And really, if from a company standpoint, if you're not bringing 3x in of what they're paying you, they're probably, making a bad decision. But so a lot of people on LinkedIn, they list their responsibilities. And I always say 2 or 3 sentences about, what the company is, so they don't have to go click and try to go to the company's website. What's the 2 or 3 big sentences on the company? Then what did you do for the company? Don't tell me what your responsibilities is. What did you do? Because if I'm looking for you as a potential candidate for a job, I want to know what you did, right? I don't want to know what your responsibilities are, because in the old world, I would say, okay, he's probably had a lot of responsibility. I'll call him and I'll talk to him. And today, we just pass you on by and go to the next one, right? Because you're not show ready. In other words, you're not ready for me to take you to a client. As long as I can get show ready people that fit the client's bill, I mean, they go to the front of the bus. And what a lot of people don't understand is, well, I'm here, but I said, you're at the back of the bus. We go to the front of the bus and we ask the first 2 or 3 people at the front of the bus to get off the bus and come take a look at this, right? We never get to the back of the bus. So if you coming up in searches, 395 out of 400, then you're probably not using LinkedIn to your advantage. And so you can really hone it in and tweak it and tell stories. And the second piece that I think a lot of people are not aware is LinkedIn is exactly like the Wall Street Journal. So you have the front page above the fold, and on there it says, hey, here's something that happened with Trump. Here's something that happened with Biden, but go to page 3, go to page 5, right? So if you want to know more, you can go there. So a lot of people just use LinkedIn and they just use kind of what I call the front end list. But you have all these other features on LinkedIn that are pages 2 through 15. There's the op-ed section, I'm just giving a kind of a literal example. So you can populate all those areas that amplify things that you kind of did on the front page. And so if you've done it, why not get it populated and out there? Secondly, with a resume, all you're selling is your intellectual, your IQ. LinkedIn gives you the capability to sell or merchandise or let somebody know your emotional intelligence. And people say, well, what do you mean by that? Well, I mean, what is it that you like? I mean, do you like animal welfare? I mean, you can check that box. What do you volunteer at? All these other kind of things. So I always say a resume is a black and white photograph. It's a quick shot, got all your intellectual stuff. A LinkedIn profile is an oil portrait that you can get as detailed as you want to be with all the various sections, And so I didn't even have a website until when I wrote the book. The Morgan James made me actually build a website. So all my traffic was coming strictly from my LinkedIn profile. So I've coached in 14 different countries. So I haven't advertised in 14 different countries. So all of these people are coming to me because I'm coming up in a search for whatever they're searching for, and they're finding me through LinkedIn profile. And so that engenders a message or a note, and that engenders probably a phone call, and then we go from there. So what that's helped me do is bring, clients that I coach and career transition, um, regular what I call consulting jobs. Joe, I have this problem. You look like you've solved it before. Can we come to terms? Those kind of things. And uh, it just, um, I found if you lay out story after story of how you've solved problems, somebody resonates with that and you get an inquiry. And so when I'm searching for people, if you show up in the searches, what I'm looking for in those things is, okay, where's the story after story after story that he solved these problems on this position specification or this job requirement? Because with that, I have the ammunition necessary to fight the war for you. If I don't have that, then I've got to call you and try to pull it out of you, which means I don't have time because people, the client is wanting the problem solved. In the olden times, we just had to do that. Let me have coffee with you and let me find out some more things. And the speed of business today is such that unfortunately a lot of that's gone by the wayside.
Right.
Let me give you
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
let me give you one example. So I was working on a search, and I talked to the group. Always try to have lunch with the group that's going to make the decision, because you'll find out what's not on the paper.
Yes.
And so one thing I found out is the key decision maker had been an Eagle Scout, and he said, "John, I want you to find me somebody that's really good in this area, kind of Eagle Scout type." And I said, "Okay, I got that message. I'm going to find somebody that's good like that and an Eagle Scout." And so anyway, so I sent 3 out of 5 in there that were Eagle Scouts, and eventually, one of the ones he picked was an Eagle Scout, right? So it resonated, right? You had to sell the emotional intelligence in the interview. So one of the other candidates came back to me and said, "Well, I really think you liked an Eagle Scout." And he said, "Well, I'm an Eagle Scout." And I said, "No, you're not an Eagle Scout." And he says, "Yes, I am." And he goes to his wallet and pulls out a card, because, the BSA gives people a real live card that says, "Yeah, you are, and here's your number," and all that kind of stuff. I said, "Look, if you're not an Eagle Scout on your LinkedIn profile, as far as I'm concerned, you're not an Eagle Scout." And I said, "You missed this opportunity because I couldn't put you forward because I didn't know." And I said, "I hope you learned something from this."
It's really interesting that you mentioned about telling stories and going into depth. And in preparing for today, of course, I reviewed your profile and noticed that your profile is extremely deep. And I was curious about that because, in writing resumes, you want to be very brief, very topical, keywords, just it's the setting the hook. If
Right.
you're fishing, right? You've got the right bait, you set the hook, then you get to go into the interview. But of course, they're going to look at your LinkedIn profile. And with our short attention span and our need for immediate gratification in society today, I'm curious about the juxtaposition of the quantity of information against that. Do you find that recruiters and executive recruiters will go through in depth like you do on somebody's profile if it's completely filled out like that?
What I find is, you're writing the profile for the 1 in 100. Okay. It's the one person that all of a sudden they resonate with you. So I spend 12 seconds on a profile.
Mhm.
And so I look at their background photo, not their profile photo. Does that match up with their headline, what they say they do? Then does their profile picture look like they're ready for an interview? So if you're holding up the fish, out there on the boat, to me, you're not okay, you're not really wanting an interview, and a lot of people, hey, I got my own company, I don't need, and that's fine. But if you're wanting something, you need to dress for success. For example, I'm at this podcast with you, basically attired the same way that you'd find on my LinkedIn, profile, because I'm trying to be consistent, across what you want. But when you talked about the depth of the profile, so I always say, if you're competing for something, hey, you want another job or something, you're in a noun and verb war with your peers. So the more nouns and verbs you have, in the areas that you're competing against, the higher your chance of coming up higher in the search. And so, although I have a lot of content, on my LinkedIn profile, most people are never going to go to it because you have to open those other sections, right? You have to physically click and open and go read. But all those nouns and verbs are propelling me ahead of these other people, because I'm getting calls from 14 different countries, right? So somehow or another, I'm coming up in there. And like I said, I didn't have a website before I wrote the book, and I really just used LinkedIn, and I looked at, okay, what does everybody ever asked me to do, solve a problem? And that story is somewhere embedded in that LinkedIn profile. And a lot of times I'll be interviewed to, hey, Joe, we want you to blue team this project. We want you to red team this project, or something like that. And they'll ask a question. And I say, well, yeah, I've done that. And it's extremely detailed on my LinkedIn profile. It's extremely detailed on my LinkedIn profile. And so what's happened is also backed up by third party. So if I built a project, I put the other project team members, that person wanted to call that project team member, I mean, their name is there, the LinkedIn profile is there. So LinkedIn gives you the ability to do a lot of third party verification. For example, your recommendations, people also making comments on whatever you're doing in career services, and those kind of things. So people can do their due diligence on that. And the resume versus LinkedIn profile, the one I use that's easier for people to understand, I said, every once in a while, you got this warehouse, and it's the Joe Frankie warehouse or the Kathy warehouse, and that's your LinkedIn profile. And every once in a while, a truck comes to that warehouse, and it's got resume on it. But you go through this entire warehouse, and you only pull the pallets that you need for the resume, because the resume is going to be restricted to 2 pages or 3 pages or whatever the company says it wants. But you might have 10 pages in your LinkedIn profile. You're not going to put it all in there. You're going to put exactly what they want in there. The key point is anything that you put on a resume has to be backed up on a LinkedIn profile. And the other thing I do with people, they say, here, Joe, here's my writing samples. And I said, I don't need any writing samples. And they said, Joe, here are my references. I said, I don't need any references. And they said, but Joe, I worked hard to get this reference. And I said, I'm going to your recommendations on your LinkedIn profile, and I'm probably going to call a couple of those people. And oh, by the way, if those people don't want to put what they put on this paper for you on your profile, then these people really must believe in you, because they're sticking their reputation out here in social media. In the writing sample, I say, when you write somebody else a recommendation, that's a writing sample I pull and use. So LinkedIn is kind of one-stop shopping. It can be made that way. There's a lot of power there, and I think people need to make the effort if they want to, and it's certainly helped me significantly.
It sounds like it has. And I would imagine that when you're consulting with somebody and coaching somebody, you help them optimize their LinkedIn profile in this way so that they can get to where they're wanting to go.
Yeah. In other words, the hardest 2 questions is, what is it you want? And believe it or not, some people, you really have to spend some time because sometimes it'll be the three things they want. And I said, okay, then the three things, then what is common to these three paths? So let's start working on that. And maybe at some point in time, you're going to narrow it down to two and then get to one. But the important thing is if you build the foundation right, just like a house, got a good foundation, you can go vertically as high as you want to go.
I had a couple of questions. So now, are people using video more now to get their message? Since sometimes,
I think they are. The challenge is right now, if you come up in a search, that's a noun and verb challenge. So I'm not saying I'm not, I think video has its place, but the priority of effort is building your LinkedIn profile with nouns and verbs. And then the media piece of it is kind of really good frosting, to add to the cake that you've built.
yeah, the reason I was asking, I took a training that Erin Marino, I think was in movies, I think Jersey Girls, and she was saying that videos like a testimonial video or a contact video just on your phone by text was another gateway. But of course, you're looking at generational differences between millennials and Gen Zers. I was curious about your observation in that sphere as well. Are they using your approach? Are they using video more? Because a lot of they're on different social media. Maybe they're not on
Right.
LinkedIn, but are they using LinkedIn as well?
I mean, you have the place for it on LinkedIn, and even LinkedIn is adding more places that you can go back. For example, I just noticed last week I was updating one of my licenses and certifications, and now you can put your skills that you use on those licenses and certifications. And also found now they've got a media link there, so you can actually put if you want to put the certificate or whatever you want to do. So what happens is LinkedIn is not stagnant; it's adjusting. And a lot of times people say, "Joe, can you tell me where to find this?" And I say, "Here's exactly how to get to the help thing." And I said, "Well, you're an expert." I said, "LinkedIn changes as faster
Right.
than I can keep up with it." And so even I go to the help thing and say, "Okay, where did they move my cheese that I normally went to?"
Well, that also brings up a good point. Now, LinkedIn has the premium. What's been your experience with the upgrading of your LinkedIn account?
I have on the first paying level premium, and all veterans are authorized that 1 year free.
Good info. Good info.
You want to use the premium section, and the premium section is all that I use. There's all kinds of sections, all the way up to super recruiter, that you pay about $500 a month for. And I just use the first paying section. Why? Because that gives me reach of the entire globe. And that means if you just have the free section, your world is out to the third level of all your connections. So that's a small world. So you pay for the ability to see the entire globe. And then the other thing is you get 3 in-mails, which means if you wanted to contact somebody directly, that gives you the ability to do so. And if you went and paid for it on the free side, that would be $30. And I think $30 is around the first premium level. But I've found that you can do everything that you want to do at the very first paying level.
Now,
And that's
how do they confirm you're a veteran? You have to submit a DD-214?
yes.
Okay.
No, you don't have to submit a DD-14, but they comes up with a thing and you fill out the things. For example, Texas now, if you've certified yourself as a veteran on your driver's license, I mean, that's one way.
Good info. Now, I wanted to talk about your book. So does LinkedIn have the ability for advertisement? So let's say we wanted to promote your book on LinkedIn. Is there a way to do that? But more importantly, that is the content of the book, right? The 5-minute drill in your book, you give some tips on how folks can connect with different groups
Yeah.
within 5 minutes of your day. It's not consuming your whole day, because that's usually been the biggest criticism
So,
of social media takes so much time, but you actually came out with a system that helps minimize
and
that.
what it was, there was a lot of executives when I go to them and, tell them all the things about LinkedIn. Hey, Joe, I'm really not interested in that stuff. I don't have time for that stuff. And I said, well, you kind of need to be there. And I said, okay, well, then I want some way that, I don't have to monkey with this stuff. So the first 5 or 6 pages of the book is just a checklist. Okay, you only want to put 5 minutes in. Okay, here's how to do it. And then I had some people come back and say, hey, this takes more than 5 minutes. And I said, no, you didn't follow the checklist. I said, it doesn't tell you to look up. It doesn't tell you to look left. It says, read the next line and do it. And I said, try it for 2 weeks. And he came back and he said, Joe, once I got really disciplined, I could do it in 5 minutes, but I wasn't doing anything else. And I said, look, if you want to spend 10 minutes, that's fine. But most executives, okay, show me a way that I can go out there, mark my terrain a little bit, show that I'm alive. And so basically that's a checklist. And then the rest of the book is, okay, here's all the power of LinkedIn. This is what Lori found, and this is, what I found, and it's just suggestions. The back of the book, if you want to go deeper into it, has all the resources that we consulted with to do the book, as well as kind of a profile layout, if you want to follow the thing. So the book is an hour read, and it's the hardest thing I ever did was get a book that could be done in an hour. And Lori and I struggle with that, but we competed the book internationally, and it won gold for career development and silver for business. And so the way the book is really advertised is, here's an example. Writing the book was a project that Lori and I did with the help of a lot of editors. Then marketing the book is a different project because it's a different thing, and that's a still ongoing project. So that's the number one project. So the book is a public publication. So there is a write-up on the publication section of the book. It received an honor and award in this competition. So in the honor and award section, it's explained how it earned the honor and award. And then in the experience section, I'm an author, with Morgan James Publishing. So there's about 10,000 characters on this LinkedIn profile, relating to this book. And so that's just an example of how you can take something that's important to you and amplify it from other areas. There's just a lot of power there.
Those are some really good points about that. And, I'm sure a lot of people don't think about these things. And we've spent a lot of time today talking about the power of your profile and how to make your profile powerful. What about the other element of LinkedIn with the networking? Of course, most people get their next job from a friend of a friend of a friend, or they get business from referrals from people stepping out to that third level. What are some of the recommendations you have for people as far as using it as a networking tool?
Well, I think it's a great networking tool. I get contacted every day by, I'm an open profile user, which means somebody can, send me a message, without paying for it. I mean, I'm just open. But, you get somebody that I'm their first LinkedIn connection. There's a name and something, and they went to Heidelberg University. And so at that point, I don't know if that's real or not. And so I always go back. I send them a link to my bookshelf on my, I've got a bookshelf, a little virtual bookshelf on my website called LinkedIn, and it's got 3 books that I recommend, and then I tell them, I said, please contact me when you've verified your identity. I said, mine is identified. So when people are coming out of the woodwork with, nothing to show, they're buck naked, kind of.
Yes.
I'm a little bit reserved, because you need to be. But I also try to tell them, okay, here's how to get out of the woods. Here's how to get some clothes, and progress a little further. Did that answer your question, Kathy?
To some degree, yes. I mean, certainly you've got to verify your profile.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's hugely important.
So you were asking about networking. So my
Yeah.
point was when somebody goes, okay, and somebody says, okay, I say, okay, I'm Kathy, and hey, I talked to this guy Joe today. He's uh, pretty cool in this area. So when somebody goes, what are they going to do when they say, okay, I talked to Joe Frankie today? But what anybody does anymore is they go to LinkedIn and they go look at your profile. And what
Mhm.
I'm saying is when that happens, you need to be ready. In other words, you got your shot. Are you going to be buck naked or are you going to be dressed for success?
Right.
And remember, you're writing the profile not for the 100. You're writing it for that one person that's really looking for something, and they're trying to find out whether, do you fit this, or should I venture to contact you? And the other thing is you need to be kind of open. And people will say, well, what's that? And I said, I put my high school education on my profile, and people say, well, who cares about that? And I said, well, it's funny. People will say, hey, I played offensive center in high school. Hey, uh, I learned how to scuba dive in high school. I did poetry interpretation. I did one act play, all these kind of things. Because if you're on LinkedIn, you definitely went to high school. And so the other thing is, I get a lot of requirements for people to find people that had responsibility at an early age. So if you have in your high school thing, you have 1,000 characters there. Hey, I worked at the gas station after high school, or I sacked groceries, or whatever. Or this one lady, I was at a university talking, and I used her as an example. She just said, I was a shift supervisor at McDonald's. And I said, that, no, you weren't. And she said, well, why do you say that? And I said, no. I said, you had fiscal accountability. I said, did you change out cash drawers? She says, yes. And I said, how many times in that 2 years? And he said, well, in these shifts, okay, it's 200 times. I said, was there any discrepancy? He said, no. And I said, that's a statement that goes on your LinkedIn profile. And we broke down the shift supervisor until we had 2,000 characters of all the things she did, from logistics, from laying out stuff. She hired and she fired.
Wow.
So all of that needs to go. How many people did you hire? How many people did you fire? And all those kind of things. And then you've got people that are willing to look at you because they can see what you brought to the table, as opposed to, hey, I was a petroleum transport sergeant, or I was a shift supervisor at McDonald's.
You tell more of the story.
Yeah.
So on the networking question too, so say somebody is looking for a job and they're reaching out to somebody who um, maybe they don't know, but they'd like to get some help or some guidance from. Uh, Do you work with your people on how to do that?
Yeah.
Most
I
effective
show them.
ways for people to do that? Because I know that people who are using LinkedIn for job search um, are looking to connect with other people. That's one of the biggest powers of it, is connecting with others.
Right. And the other thing is, here's how to get an information interview, you know,
Right.
there's, and you have to learn what I call the manners of LinkedIn. You know, I have when I work with clients, I say, when you first got onto LinkedIn, just like the example of this person that contacted me, you're using it as a sword. It's a big, heavy thing that you wield around. It's not too deft, and you learn kind of okay. You learn how to get some stuff out there, and now you're kind of using it as a sword or a saber. You've got some agility here. Now you're getting your stuff populated. You know how to do that. Then eventually you want to be able to use it like a scalpel. In other words, I want to find this one person over in this vertical in this company that's probably going to have some impact on this job. So I've got one client right now. He knows in this major metropolitan area is 3 companies, and he knows the job number in each one of these 3 companies, and he wants just that job. Okay, it gets real easy when somebody says, I just want that job. So what we did is we take and pattern all the people in this company using LinkedIn who are going to be the supervisors or are going to impact on that job. Because one of those jobs is going to come open in the next 18 months. So his mission is to, one, connect with all the people that can affect it. And as after he connects with them, develop a relationship, then go have coffee with them. And so he's going to know all the decision makers in these 3 companies that are going to affect this job. Now that's pretty specific, but he knows exactly what we wanted. And my point is, those of us in the military, the best business intelligence tool, and they'll understand what that means, is LinkedIn. You can get the best intelligence you want if you know how to run a query on LinkedIn.
Absolutely. So, Andy, do you have some additional questions?
Well, he just elevated LinkedIn to the top of the list. I mean, we did talk about there's 230 social media for business, right? But what's the number one social media for business?
LinkedIn.
We just got that fortified, and of course, people read books. And again, this was slated for me to read again, but now it's made the priority list because I did implement these things. I said, yeah, I could spend 5 minutes on LinkedIn. And of course, a lot of times when I'm going to post something, it'll suggest, do you want to post it like in film and television? And if it is a film and television type post, my answer would be yes, because then that gets me out in front. In fact, you and I met on LinkedIn doing a search. After I read your book, I said, hey, let me go see if I can find Joe. And true to fame, you made yourself available and you responded like right away. And of course, I was definitely keeping you on my radar. I said, at some point, maybe we'll get to meet each other. I didn't realize you were here in Texas, but the name of the book is The 5-Minute Drill for Executive Networking Success. So that answers the question about the value of the networking component, right? And then curious is, how do you select, or how do you work with clients, right? Because you work with individuals all the way up to corporations, and it sounds like you do international engagements as well. So
most of them I'm working with them over the phone and the computer, and when we're working on LinkedIn, we're really that I'm working with them, it's really just over the phone. We're on the computer, but we're not using Zoom or anything else, because 70% of your brain power is captured by your visual thing, and I need more brain power on the auditory to get the coaching in.
Okay. Now, I met my wife at a Whataburger, so that is part of my story. The legend is that Love came walking in 1981, April 30th, and I was taking her order and been taking her orders ever since. But the Whataburger experience, as you were talking about that early responsibility, it really kind of brought to mind. I was 15 and running a store, running a crew. And so that's not on my resume now, but now I need to make sure it's on my LinkedIn.
So it should be under your high school. In fact, I created 2 educational things called the Frankie Family Internship Program, and they come actually below my high school, because we had 2 family businesses. We had a family restaurant, and my aunt and uncle ran a Phillips 66 station. And when you're family, you're learning stuff, but you're also free labor.
Well, these places like Whataburger and Chick-fil-A, I mean, they really taught how to service the customer. That was like, yeah. So that's why I was curious about the generational differences, because sometimes, you wonder if we're passing the baton, right, to the next generation. I'm Boomer X, and of course we have the Boomer generations, et cetera. But you want to value your elders and so forth. So how do we transition this knowledge base to the next generation is also part of the discussions that I have with my own children for 23 and 20 now.
So I get out and talk just like both of y'all do. And my main thing is one at a time. So I've done 720, and people say, well, why do you have to tell me that number? And I said, well, if you're going to work for me, I mean, if I'm going to help you and you can't measure your production, I can't sell you. And if I can't sell you, you need to keep your money. And think about, okay, that's just like, okay, that lady that said, okay, she's a shift supervisor, and that's all she thought she needed to say. I mean, in that case, the amount of authority and power and responsibility she had need to be described very specifically so that somebody would see that she has it. If they can't see it, then it's got to come from you in an interview. And what LinkedIn gives you the power to do, when you think about it, is take every possible interview question, your particular experience, and you can populate that inside a LinkedIn profile.
So it'd be a great
So,
piece of advice to go study your profile and maybe benchmark a little
well,
bit.
there's a lot there, and I'm not saying everybody needs a lot. I'm just saying, it's funny. For example, worked with two CEOs in the last 12 years, and I said, a person called me and said, "How'd you find me?" And they said, you're a blood donor." I said, "Okay." And I said, "I saw that on your LinkedIn profile in the volunteer section." And I said, "Well, why is that important to you?" And he said, "I have a daughter that requires frequent blood transfusions, and I've decided I'm going to work with blood donors anytime I can."
Wow.
Okay, so that's how the conversation started. So my point is, I had no idea that had any relevance, but all of a sudden it had relevance to somebody I never thought about. And so people will say, "Well, I don't know if I want to put that on there." And I said, "Well, take it to your grave."
Mm.
And I went through all this with one person, and they said, "Joe, I'm not going to do any of this. I'm just going to go back to the way it was." I said, "Okay." I said, "Then take everything that we've done and put it in a file." And I said, "Why do I need to do that?" And I said, "Mark it obituary, so your wife's already got it done.
Wow.
Either use it to work for you now, or let somebody talk about it after you're gone."
Well, I love your practical guidance and your approachability. You've been fun to talk to. And of course, you've got a wealth of experience and knowledge. And like I said, show honor to whom honors due. So that, we appreciate your time because, you definitely have invested so much of your reputation and your history to help others. And, and it's relevant. So thank you so much. Kathy, you want to go ahead and send us off and we'll wrap this interview.
Joe,
Well,
thank you again for sharing all of your expertise on LinkedIn with us and how to help people get to where they want to go in their careers. Our goal with this is to help create a million veteran millionaires. And of course, this applies to everybody, not just veterans. But Andy being a Marine and me being a passionate patriot, we both have hearts to help veterans be successful. And so thank you very much for all of the wisdom that you've shared here today. And I would imagine if somebody were interested in connecting with you, possibly working with you, finding you on your LinkedIn profile would be the way to do that.
That's the easy way. It's I got an open profile and always say, please say in your message something other than nothing.
right.
Right. Well, and that's key. People are more
Yeah,
likely to connect if you send a note, whether you know
yeah,
them or not, right?
yeah,
So, well, do you have any final comments before we wrap up today?
yeah. Kathy, thank you for what you're doing, because I know that coaching business is a tough business, and and you learn something every day. And people say, well, I tell people I've learned more from the 720 people I've coached than they've learned from me. And so it's just keeps adding. So thank both of you for what you do day in and day out with the idea and the thought to progress veterans forward. And I think it's essential, and we all have a responsibility to do our best to do so.
Well, I always say we have a country to save. And I've been Kathy's toughest student, by the way. The old saying, when the student's ready, the teacher will appear. But we've been friends for a while. But the good intel that you've given us is that there are veterans on LinkedIn. So we're going to be able to data mine that. But we came up with the Million Veteran Millionaires as a hook. You don't have to be a veteran to participate in this conversation. We want businesses to be successful, right? And so if you're a millionaire, a veteran, or you want to be a millionaire, you're part of our group anyway. We've adopted you. So you're part of our network, our mighty network. So thank you, Joe. Colonel Joe, retired, veteran, a combat vet, and sage, author, influential contributor, and top influencer in the world. Thank you again for being a part of A Million Veteran Millionaires. Change your mindset, change your future.
Thank you, Andy and Kathy. It's been a pleasure. A lot of fun, too.
What would happen if you started or took your business to $1 million, $2 million, or $5 million in annual revenue? What would that mean to you personally, your family, community, and your network? It can happen. A Million Veteran Millionaires is a mindset engineering Zoom call platform created to rally and gather veteran startups or veteran-owned businesses who want to work together to help each other succeed. We will first focus on changing mindsets that keep you back and go through a process called mindset engineering to take steps to achieving success. We will feature other successful business owners who are leading the way, who are supporting this mission. We are limited to 100 attendees initially. The cost is free to attend. If you would like to know more, please visit amillionveteranmillionaires.com. You deserve to have a successful business, and we want to help you. Change your mindset, change your future.
My name is Andy Valdez, founder of Marketing Dynamics. The late Peter Drucker, the father of management theory, believed marketing was critical to your business. He said the purpose of a business is to create a customer through marketing and innovation. Strategic marketing equals immediate success. We offer you speed to market without the speeding tickets. Work smarter, harder, faster. Marketing Dynamics, because the market never stays the same. Please visit teammarketingdynamics.com.
America needs veterans more than ever. As a veteran business owner, you are equipped with a focus, professionalism, and dedication that is rare in the marketplace. We are looking for former military, make it happen business leaders like you to join forces with a marketplace mission called Veterans Business Force National, a division of Network in Action Business Force based in Houston, Texas. We are rallying patriots to work together to grow opportunities for yourself, each other, and our community around the country. We meet once a month via Zoom to share our vision and align with fellow warriors. Together, we are stronger. Google Veterans Business Force National to find us before we find you. Apply to join our mission at networkinaction.com. We are Veterans Business Force National, on mission and locking arms.